Welcome to Formed, where each week we navigate a relevant topic or question through honest conversations. We are three pastors with three different backgrounds on staff together at Irving Bible Church in Irving, Texas. We believe we are constantly being formed in the way of Jesus for the sake of the world, and we hope this podcast helps with that. So let's jump into this week's episode of Formed. Welcome back to another week of Formed, and today we have a guest.
We do.
The wonderful, the marvelous Kim Jones.
Yay!
We swapped out Barry for Kim Jones today.
One Jones for another.
One Jones for another. Sissy's obviously on the couch. We get comments about the green couch all the time.
We do.
So we have a new person on the green couch.
There
Kim,
Glad to be here.
what has been the highlight of your week so far?
Oh my gosh. It's only Tuesday.
That's true.
Wow. My highlight. Today I cleaned up. That's been my highlight. There you go. Nice. I got my kid to school on time.
Hey, that's good.
That's good.
Hey,
it's the small things. It's the small things.
Small wins. It is the small things. So Kim Jones is the director of engagement at My Refuge House. Mm-hmm. And My Refuge House, a long time. Gosh, how long have we been partners with My Refuge House here at IBC?
Since it started, right?
Well, I would say, I think 12 years.
Yeah?
I think 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
12 years.
12 years.
And
we've only been around 15, so.
I pulled up the mission and vision of My Refuge House. If you're listening to this and you don't have any background or context, we'll talk about the origin of it in a second. But the mission and vision of My Refuge House is it offers a safety and a path of restoration for girls who have been rescued from commercial sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and sexual abuse. So today we want to talk about trafficking. What is our role in this? What has been the heart behind My Refuge House, your position, why you're so passionate about it, why the church should be passionate about it, and maybe some misconceptions about it. We hear this word thrown out so much in so many different contexts, both in the local church, both in Hollywood, in all these different contexts. But we want to approach it from this angle of what is it? What can we do about it? And ultimately, what is the Lord like? What is our role? What is our role to play in this? But let's start with My Refuge House. You've been there, 10 years?
Yeah, 10.
10 years with My Refuge House. If we could, I would love to do kind of the origin story of it, and then let's talk about how you got involved with it.
Okay. Well, My Refuge House began out of a small church, a small group of people in Southern California. That would have been, when they began their journey, that would have been probably about 16 years ago. Wow. And at that time, this church, which was predominantly Filipino, decided to read a book that was on trafficking, and were so just so stirred and so it made them think, wow, we've got to respond to what we're reading. And with that, they began to just pray and fast and just try to figure out how do we, this small group that of regular people, respond to this enormous issue that's plaguing the world. And at the same time, there was an organization that had just began to work in Cebu, Philippines. And at that time, Cebu was considered the sex tourism capital of the world. And they realized that through their work, they needed some sort of like aftercare, if you will, and not full aftercare, but a place where, like a drop-in facility. And at the same time that is happening, this small group, this church was asking these questions, reached out to this organization and said, what can we do? And they said, we would love for you to help us open up a drop-in center. Well, at the same time, this small church had been saving money. I think at this point it had been maybe 10 years to build a building or buy a building of some sort. Now, it's Southern California, and we all know how expensive it is to live or do anything in California. And instead of using that money to buy a building, they chose to use that money to start My Refuge House. So it was just ordinary people recognizing that God was calling them to the issues that are plaguing this world, that we play a part as followers of Christ to bring light and hope, peace to this world. And this was their way of doing that, and that's how MRH started.
15 years ago?
15 years ago. And from that point, it evolved from just a drop-in center to then what we have now, which is a full-blown aftercare program that is just, it's holistic in nature. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we, as we move through this conversation. But for me, the way I got started, just with this whole issue it was probably about 12, 13 years ago. I was watching a special, and it was this whole series of famous people interviewing their heroes. And this one interview happened to be with Ashley Judd. I really like Ashley Judd. And so she was interviewing Madeleine Albright, who had been Secretary of State. And in that conversation, they were talking a lot about issues in particular that related to women and girls throughout the world. And the thing that really piqued my interest in the conversation was they used the word human trafficking. And I had never heard about human trafficking. I was like, what in the world is human trafficking? And, like any good human these days, what do? We go to the internet and we Google, right? We immediately go and we Google. And so after that interview, I got online and I started Googling human trafficking. And man, it took me different places, and I began to read. I just was devouring everything that I could that was out there, began to write about it, began just to study about all the pieces and parts of trafficking itself, not just as we deal with at My Refuge House, which is sexual exploitation and sex trafficking, but human trafficking overall. Sex trafficking is just actually a small piece to this larger puzzle, if you will. Human trafficking, people are being sold for labor in a variety of ways throughout this world. And the thing about the selling of humans is that, as a commodity, a human can be sold again and again and again, whereas, some commodities, there's, one use and you're done, right? And so it's a billion-dollar industry that, and I use the word plaguing, but it really is plaguing the world.
Now, when you got involved, because My Refuge House is one of IBC's global partners, and we've just had this incredible relationship with them. Love the work that My Refuge House is doing. How did IBC get involved with My Refuge House? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I guess it was probably, I would say maybe 13 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly the time, but at that particular time, Crystal Sprague, who would then become the executive director during that time period, was attending UTA, and she was working on her master's degree in social work, and was also part of one of our Bible communities here. And through that Bible community, she was telling them about the work that My Refuge House was doing, because when she finished, she was going to go over to Cebu and begin to do the work on the ground there. Oh. And so that's how we got started. It was actually a small group of people, again, within the IBC community that recognized that we should do something. And it was actually comprised of all young adults. And so through Crystal, that's the way we began the process of just checking out My Refuge House. That's where we began to invest. We built one of the cottages. We ended up building our pavilion that's there, and IBC then has become one of the biggest supporters of My Refuge House, which is fantastic. It has really enabled us to do so many things and has helped our programs grow, not just in deep ways, right, but also wide, right?
Yeah.
We've been able to widen our scope of impact as well because of IBC. That small group, again, the small group of ordinary people recognizing that they had a responsibility and needed to do something, and that's how IBC got involved.
Yeah. You know, a lot of times we talk about here, it's where your place of service is where your passion, need, and opportunity come together. And that's what we see in how you got involved in My Refuge House, and even how IBC, through these it's ordinary people who see this is something we can do something about. There's a real need here. How do we work for this? So love that.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say for myself, as I began to learn more about trafficking, I think as an ordinary person, you know, I was a school teacher, you know, and I worked with marginalized people groups, and so for me, I was drawn to the issue because a lot of what human trafficking really, I think, exposes is that we have some broken systems. And we have a responsibility to help fix those things that are broken. So as I began to learn more and more about trafficking, I'll be honest with you, it felt so enormous. It felt so large that I thought, who am I? I'm a school teacher. What in the world? Yeah. I had 3 kids at home. What in the world could I do to make a difference? And in fact, I think it was there was a point I remember in the journey that it became kind of scary to me in the sense of the problem seeming so big and it felt so dark that I thought, oh, I have no business at all responding, and really wanted to step out. And I had a friend call me on that. And he said, you know, don't be afraid. And because there's actually a lot of work that's being done that's really, and I felt like what he did was, don't focus on the dark, focus on the light.
That's good. Yeah.
And as soon as I had that revalue, you know, taking my face and pointing it in the right direction, that's when it really illuminated, oh, wait a second, I do have something that I bring to this subject that no one else can, right? And as I like to say, a Kim-shaped impact. We all have our own way that we can impact things in our own unique, special kind of way. So
love that.
Each year, there's a fundraiser here in Dallas, a fashion show, Fashion for Freedom. And a few years ago, there was this video. I think it was called "Becoming."
Oh yeah.
And you know, we actually showed it in service here, I guess 2 years ago, also, or a portion of it. And there's this moment, you know, it's told from the perspective of a young girl there at My Refuge House in the Philippines. And there's this moment of the red door opening. And if you could you walk through, and I know it's a long process, but could you walk through what the process looks like for a girl that making it to your house?
Yeah. So we work with organizations and, of course, then social services that actually they're the ones who do rescues, right? We really want to make sure that those that are trained in law enforcement are doing that job. That's not our job. Our job is to be a space where we are the place they come to after they are rescued. A lot of times when an individual is rescued, they may not even recognize they need to be rescued. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand. This is a really complex issue. It's a complex issue for a number of reasons, but even most importantly, it's complex psychologically. And so when an individual is rescued, they then are given the option. A lot of aftercare homes may not give this as an option. This is our model. We have learned over the last 15 years that this actually works. When a girl is rescued, they are given, social services will say to them, we have a place where you can go. It's called My Refuge House. If you would like to go, they would like to come and meet with you. It is up to you. You determine if you would like to go. It's important for us as an organization that our girls make this decision for themselves. Right. All decisions, all of their personhood has been taken from them, and this is their first opportunity to say, you know what, I'm making this decision for me. And we really try to lay out what we do as beautifully as we can, so that they will see that this is a good decision, right? So our director that's on the ground, Roseanne, will go and visit with them at our offices in Cebu, and talk about the organization, talk about what all they receive when they come to My Refuge House, and they are, would you like to do it? And if they say no, we say that's okay, but would you be interested in meeting with one of the girls that's currently in our program? We'd love for you, before you make your final decision, we'd love for that to happen. So the next step will be that we will introduce one of the girls that's in the program. They will meet again one-on-one. At this point, Roseanne pulls herself out, and it's it's peer-to-peer, right? And then from that point, she is given the opportunity, yes or no. I don't know. I'm leaning maybe no. I don't know. And then we say, well, how about come and visit our space? And from that point, they'll come and they get to visit, they get to see the programs, and then they determine for themselves if they want to stay. Most of the time, it is a yes, as we have given them this opportunity to make the decision. Once they're there, every girl is treated based on what their individual needs are. We go through, obviously they are given education opportunities. We have a homeschool program that's actually a certified homeschool program that we work through with an organization out of Manila. So every girl is provided education. A lot of times when our girls come in, they have less than a third grade education. And as you probably both know, education is key, especially for females. It is key for not only her own success, but her family's success, which then trickles out to their communities. It trickles out into beyond that. I believe that when women are educated, I believe countries are changed.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important. So that's like the crux. That is one of the most essential and important pieces to our program at My Refuge House. In addition to that, we provide any psychological care that they need. And that may look different for every girl. That may be we provide a wide array of kinds of therapeutic services, from play therapy to even gardening. That we use that as a piece of therapy. We have a prayer garden. There's a lot of things that we do that actually involve the use of their bodies in really good, positive ways, whether it's through yoga or even dance, like Zumba even. Yeah. Who'd think that Zumba was therapeutic, but it is.
I can rock with Zumba.
Listen, I'm out of breath every time I do Zumba. I'm like, man, this is hard work right here. But we try to make sure that we treat them as a whole person. It's not just now that you're rescued, it's all better.
Right.
And beyond education, therapy, spiritual care, we have house moms. We really take the mindset of the family. So the Filipino culture is very familiar, and because it is that way, we really want to make sure that our the girls' experience is very familiar in nature, right? And so we have house moms that are there around the clock. We have a social worker. We make sure that they're cared for physically, whether it's getting their eyes checked, getting their teeth taken care of. Some of them will have received glasses for the very first time, and they might be 13 years old and needed glasses when they were 4, right?
Yeah.
We have a doctor that comes in that provides OBGYN care. Obviously, with the nature of what our girls have experienced, we have to care for them in that kind of way as well. So it is a wide array of services, but every service is important to their restoration as they move forward.
It's awesome work.
Yeah, I love the holistic care. I love the opportunity that you give them to make a decision for themselves. And it's like this, it's this slow path of, look, we'll just have this conversation, just come see this, but you get to decide.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that's been taken away from them, and you give them that for the first time. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah. It's really, I think for the girls, to me, the work that we do it reminds me of discipleship. Mm-hmm. It feels to me in a very tangible kind of way, the way discipleship looks like, in the sense that when you are discipling someone, it is a walk alongside them. It is not a one and done kind of thing. Yeah. It is 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Mm-hmm. It is it is very organic in so many ways. And that is, I feel like, a lot of the model that what we do at My Refuge House is just walking with them. I think the other piece with the nature of this issue, because there is trauma involved, a lot of times, again, I think going back to maybe misconceptions.
That was my next question. Yeah,
I think the misconceptions are the fact that, oh wow, they're rescued. It's great, right? It's all good. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think as Westerners, we can be deceived by the fairy tale. We see things as, the prince, the princess come in and swept her off her feet and she's okay. We know that is not how life is, right? We know that that's not true, right? And just so as individuals who have experienced trauma, it doesn't just go away. It doesn't just go away. And so as an organization, we recognize that although we provide all of these pieces, right, whether it's spiritual care, psychological care, physical, and that's a wide array of different things that we provide there as well, there is still the fact that there has been trauma done to this person. And with trauma comes with it 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And one of the things that our girls know is that we are there for them no matter what.
Yeah. You don't ever give up on them.
No, we never give up on them.
Yeah.
And that's scriptural.
Yep.
That's scripture, right? Yeah. We are going to, in scripture you see, and again, the obvious one is the prodigal son, right? The disappointment, if you will, that what the son does, right? Yeah. Well, both sons, let's be honest. And but the father in that instance, when he comes home, when the prodigal comes home, the father runs to him. He picks up his garment, right? He picks up his garment and runs to his son.
Yeah.
There is no shame in what he has done and where he has been and how he's floundered, whatever. And so for us with our girls, there is never to be shame. There is never to be shame. And we are ready to come to you. And I will say, though, that we have stories of girls who after they leave us, they're reintegrated, may make decisions that we don't want them to make, right? I as a parent, I don't want my children to make decisions that I know are going to harm themselves, or decisions that I know it's probably not the right route, right? But we allow them to do that, and with that comes a lot of learning, a lot of learning. And I guess it was last year sometime, we had one of our girls was really struggling. And Roseanne just made a point to say to her, and a lot of times our girls will communicate on Facebook to us and that kind of thing, and reached out to Roseanne and said, I'm so sorry. And Roseanne said, it's okay. You always have a place here. And in fact, if you give me the word, I'm coming. Mm. And she gave her the word and we came. Mm. We always have an open door.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of our program, is that even after our girls come to us and have gone through our program, when they leave, we still follow.
Right.
We still have a social worker that follows them. We gather our alumni. It's very familiar, right? Yeah. We're still a family. We're still a family no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's exciting for us to see when our girls are doing beautifully. We've had some girls, and when they come back for our alumni, especially when they come back for our alumni dinners or whatever, to see even some of the girls who now are moms, you know. Some may be single moms. Mm-hmm. And what for us, we think it's actually really a success. And the reason why is because we see how this mom so loves this child, right? They are changing the story. Mm-hmm. They're changing their story. They're changing their child's story. And for us, that's the goal, right? Is to help rewrite that narrative, right?
Yeah.
As they move forward.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place, guys.
Yeah. No, that's
awesome.
all
over the place.
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, we could
good.
stay in this all day.
Yeah.
What would you say, like Hollywood, TV shows, movies, different mediums that portray trafficking, what would you say they get wrong?
We do we have, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, Hollywood, it's about making money, right? Mm-hmm. We want to make
what sells.
I mean, what sells, right?
Yeah.
And so fear sells.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, Taken, I know it probably amps you up and you feel really like, Taken 1, Taken 2, and Taken 3. I think, aren't there like 3 of them now or something?
Yes.
I mean, it's like a whole, it's like the Mission Impossible of whatever.
Can't stop Liam Neeson. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, man. And so what I always have to do with people, it's sort of, it's like reteaching a little bit. It's like, this is not how it happens.
Yeah.
This is not the trafficking that I know. And as much as Hollywood wants to sell you, be afraid, stranger danger.
Yep.
Yes, that can happen. It doesn't mean it can't.
Sure.
But the likelihood that someone is going to grab your kid off the street and sell them is not very high.
Right.
The likelihood that somebody does it is far higher. Mm. That's where people have got to realize there are, and so it creates that issue, right? Hollywood it amps people up, it makes them afraid, and fear, quite frankly, sells. And I will say this, that I think sometimes nonprofits that work in this particular area, this world, I think, unfortunately, will buy into that because they need to make sure they are bringing in the funds to keep on doing what they're doing.
It puts it in the spotlight.
Right, right. So if I make you afraid and I show you images of a child in chains, that's going to make you respond. Mm-hmm. That's going to make you do something. That's going to either make you respond with money. That's going to either make you respond with fear. And for us as an organization, we want you to respond out of hope because I think Heather likes to call herself, like, was she a
hope dealer?
Hope dealer. Yeah. Yes, a hope dealer. And
I love her. She's awesome.
Isn't she fun? Yeah. Oh my God, I love her. She's she's a good friend too. She's just such a good human. So for us, it is always bringing people's eyes. You know, what's the scripture? Fix your eyes on the author, and that's what we want people to fix their eyes on. We fix our eyes on the hope that is possible. Yeah. It's not putting it, but I will say this: we're not putting our head in the sand and pretending la la la. It's not happening. It's that we have to maintain a hope to be able to maintain what we're doing.
Sure.
And I think that's so essential to this kind of work. So if someone is actually interested in like, hey, I want to be a part of this, you have to make sure you maintain where are your eyes fixed. Because if your eyes continue to be fixed on the darkness, man, you'll not stay in this work for very long. You'll not be able to continue. Won't be able to stay in. Yeah. And I just think that, back to Hollywood, I think that they do those of us that have been working in anti-trafficking, they do us a disservice. There is, and I mentioned earlier, I think one of the main issues when it comes to trafficking is our broken systems.
Yes.
Our broken systems. I know a lot of people don't want to receive that information, but it is true. When you ask, who's vulnerable to be trafficked, it's going to be a child who is lacking education, right? We look at our education system and we think, is it broken? How do we, as a former teacher, as a former public school teacher, there were children in my classroom. I worked at a very at-risk school. It had probably the highest number of homeless students in the Dallas Independent School District. And homelessness right there is a risk factor, right? Yep. And so then if you've got homelessness, right, you've got lacking the constant stability of a safe space for that particular child. And then if you have an education system that is barely doing what it needs to be doing, you're not bolstering, you're not strengthening them. You've got systems that have got to be shored up, right? Yeah. Yeah. And years ago, I told Brian Eck, I said, that our reading buddies is actually preventing human trafficking. He was like, what? I said, it is. And I said, and the reason why is that it's creating a roadblock to this particular issue. These are children that are vulnerable, but when you have solid humans, solid role models that come in and they just spend a little bit of time with a child, it does something in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. It makes them less vulnerable to this, and this, right? Yep. Yeah. You look at, we have our ministry to the homeless here in Irving. That is also another roadblock when we are caring for the people that find themselves living on the street. That is also another group of people that are vulnerable to this issue. Runaways, foster care, all of these groups of people are vulnerable to human trafficking. I think also single moms. I think programs or organizations that support single parents, that is a huge deal because they need the help and their children are vulnerable. Yeah. And so I think we have to begin to think differently and not just think, where do I find the strip club or where do I find whatever, and let's break down the doors. Yeah. It's
so much more than that.
It's so much more than that. Yeah. And a long time ago, I heard this story that basically was, what we are doing in aftercare is we're doing triage. The idea is that they have already fallen off, and now we're there doing triage. The question is, how do we get up the river? Yeah. How do we get up there to prevent them from falling off and now us having to do the triage? We want to do preventative things. Yeah. We want to be in the business of preventing this. And so when I think about all these organizations that I just, I didn't speak to specific ones, but types of organizations here domestically, that's where we need to be working. We need to be working domestically and shoring up these things and making sure that the vulnerable are protected. And then as when we think about My Refuge House, it's not that much different in that when we do prevention in Cebu, it's providing education. It's making sure that families doing micro lending. When families are in despair and they can't feed their children and they can't pay to put a roof over their heads, they resort to things they never thought they would.
Yeah.
It pushes them into a corner that they would not do things otherwise. And so as an organization, we have made a point to go, okay, how do we help to make sure that they don't fall off the edge? And we're doing the triage again, right? And it's education, it's micro lending, it's supporting the families, it's coming in and educating them about even what is trafficking? What is trafficking? What does that actually mean? So,
and this is all the stuff that you don't see in the movies.
No,
right? Because what Hollywood has done has oversimplified this incredibly complex issue and problem, right? And the complex reality of trafficking, so that it's really focused on these sort of individual heroic efforts, vigilante justice, and that is oftentimes not even helpful in the anti-trafficking effort. And so really what you're doing with My Refuge House, what organizations like My Refuge House and churches and law enforcement and governments, if we could come together, this collective action, this collaborative effort to implement systemic strategies to get to the root, because that's the problem. Why is this such a huge industry? Because it's lucrative. Like, why is it so hard? Because it's lucrative. It's money making. And how do we get to the root of we can actually do something here if we could get to the root of trafficking, of why this is a lucrative industry and how do we prevent it? And it is solutions like education and prevention. While you do aftercare, you do a lot of prevention at My Refuge House to sort of get to how do we stop it at the root so that it doesn't get to this place. So prevention and prosecuting perpetrators and protection of survivors and all of that. And what Hollywood has done to us is fed us these false narratives and stereotypes and tropes that we then believe and stop paying attention, or we're less aware of the social and economic vulnerability of children.
Right.
So we miss that. And they're not being grabbed by strangers mostly. It's typically it's people they know. They're given shelter or food or just companionship because it's lack of family, it's lack of resources that we can actually do something about right here in Irving.
It is, when you mentioned about the, with regarding children, one of the things that we have seen, I guess, I would say probably within the last 7-8 years is as trafficking has evolved, if you will, right? So anything that is profiting illegally is going to evolve because it's trying to evade law enforcement, right? It's trying to stay as far in the dark as possible, because if people know, now we're not going to be able to make any money. And so what we have seen is that it has evolved into what we call OSEC, which is online sexual exploitation of children. And so we as an organization have had to continue to evolve in the way that we do what we do, right? And so when originally I started working with My Refuge House, the average age of our girls was probably about 14 at that point. And a lot of the perpetrators were Westerners that were coming to Cebu, right? Westerners. And when I say Westerners, that's a wide array. That could be Americans, Canadians. That could be, people from Europe, Japan, whatever. That's not traditional Westerners, but Australia, New Zealand, those are the perpetrators coming to Cebu. But with online sexual exploitation, what's happened is it's sort of driven it underground. And now they are not necessarily being violated by the person coming to Cebu, but the person that, and I think that the statistic now is 98% of those that are being sold online are being sold by their mothers.
Wow.
And so that is, and so when you dig a little bit deeper, you understand that you begin to ask questions. Well, why are the mothers selling these children?
What's going on?
What's going on, right? There is generational abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual. There's that generational abuse. But there's also going back to the systemic issues of the fact that we don't have the money to do X, Y, and Z, and this is the easiest way to do it. And the idea that they have told themselves, it's not hurting my child.
Right.
And I'm telling my child, this is not hurting you, right? But the perpetrator on the other end is still the Westerner. The eyes are still there, and it is the Westerner that is still violating. Yeah. But there is this distance and these, oh, it's okay kind of mentality, right? And so as we work with our girls psychologically through a lot of this with therapeutic services, we have to unpack a whole other thing because the mom is involved. And the idea that now I've got to now my mother is going to be prosecuted. Yeah. And the idea that I have to now go to court and I have to basically speak against her in a familial culture is incredibly difficult. Yeah. Incredibly difficult. And so it's just so many pieces and parts. I think then you've got the other side of this is the demand, right? So, I mean, there would not be the need for the commodity.
If there wasn't a demand.
If there wasn't a demand, right? And so, and that's a hard thing. That's a really hard thing in this day and time. And, years ago, back in the 80s, in olden times, whatever, anyway, the way people would get pornography was, you'd go down to 7-Eleven or wherever and you'd buy the magazines that were behind the counter or whatever. And there was not anonymity to that. If I go and buy this, or if it even comes through the mail, right? Somebody still knows. But now, because of the internet,
not anymore.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Which then feeds this particular issue, and this is where and I had a really great conversation with somebody recently on another podcast about this particular issue, and that when there's a lot of shame that is involved with this on the other side with those that are partaking, if you will. And I think for me, as somebody who's been involved in this, I don't know what it is, but I have learned to have the eyes of compassion on all sides because we are all so frail. And we are all so, from the compassion to the mother of making a choice that I think a lot of us go, well, I would never do that. But we don't know, right? Yeah. And then to compassion on the other side with those that are creating the demand, having compassion for that. But at the same time, recognizing that we have to figure out what does it look like to reduce that demand side. Yeah. What does that look like? I don't work in that world, but and those are questions I think we should ask ourselves is how do we, and I think like our men's ministry here at IBC, I think really leaning into asking questions.
How do we address
those too?
Yeah.
So
it's good.
Well, Kim, thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was just talking at the store.
We could talk about this. There's so much to it.
There's so much to it.
This could have been a 3-part series, man.
It honestly, we might have to bring you back just to talk more about it. And thank you for the work that My Refuge House is doing. It's
so great.
An understatement in that, and just being able to hear about it. Going back to the beginning, we hear this word trafficking, and it's like, what do we do with it? For so many of us, and to hear the work that you're doing, hearing how the path that leads to that, and how people can get involved, and how being a reading buddy
makes a difference.
makes a difference in the world of trafficking.
And if I could say this to anybody who's watching or listening, my prayer and what I would is basically, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. And because fear is not life-giving. Fear does exactly the opposite, and that is not God's desire for our lives. And so I would encourage people to not sit in fear, but remember to fix their eyes on Christ, to fix their eyes on Jesus.
It's good.
So good. I don't have a great transition.
That's okay.
To go
I
from
don't know how you
trafficking
could.
It's
to
okay.
banter.
It's okay.
But we're going to take the next few minutes, as we always do, to have some fun at the end, have some banter. If you didn't know,
Yeah, I'm not sure we clearly stated it at the beginning.
I actually didn't on purpose because I didn't want to start the podcast with like, hey, here's the pastor's wife, because in all honesty, I grew
Barry's
up
Kim's husband.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, in Kentucky, to where the pastor's wife, that was in the like the pastor's wife, and you are so much more than just the pastor's wife, and you are so impressive of a human being and all the work that you do with My Refuge House and everything that I didn't want to start with that. You know, I didn't want to start with, hey, this is Barry's wife, whatever. So, how long have y'all been married?
I think this May.
I think.
Well, you get to a point where it's like been a long time. I think we're at 28 years.
Oh
in
my
May.
gosh.
See what I mean? 28.
That's awesome.
28 years. We were just little babies when we got married.
Well,
Sorry, that was a loud laugh.
so I reached out to Barry and I was like, Barry,
Did he know?
I'm going to send you 5 questions. So I sent Barry 5 questions and I said, I need you to answer these, but not tell Kim. And I want to ask you the same questions, and let's see if you can match up with any of them.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, this is like the dating game, right?
I'm excited
That's
about
what
it.
he said.
Y'all
Said he's
newlywed
not
game?
here.
Pray for
So-
me, people.
All right, first one. What is Barry's favorite vacation spot?
Kim, I think I know this.
I think it has to do with mountains. I think it would be in the mountains. Santa Fe, maybe? Santa Fe? Let's go with that.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. We have a point on the board.
Good job. Good job.
Okay.
Second question I asked Barry. What is Kim's most prized possession?
What would you say, Kim?
I don't have any prize possessions.
The clock is ticking.
Oh my gosh, I don't have any prized possessions.
A pair of shoes, a jacket, jewelry, the movie Elf,
Oh, I do love Elf.
Peeps.
Wrong person.
I do not have any prized possessions. What did he say?
All right, you might get a point for this. Barry says she's not very tied to possessions. What she cares about most is her kids.
Oh,
He
that's
said
true.
maybe pictures of her kids.
Yeah.
I think you kind of get a point with that.
I was like, I don't really
You're
have
like,
any
you don't really
prized
have
That's
prized
sweet, you
possessions.
don't have
And that's
I
kind of
don't
like
really
what he
possessions.
said.
Yeah.
There you go, 2 for 2. Third question. What is the most annoying thing Barry does?
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
This is great.
It's either snore or, oh, man. Oh, Lord. He's such a good arguer. And
Does he like give you quotes?
no, but like
Willard says this
oh my gosh, no.
in an argument.
He's such a sharp thinker that whenever okay, listen, whatever comes in my head just comes right out of my mouth. It's not been fully thought through. And so whatever comes out of his mouth he's been thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, oh my gosh, I'm just like, don't make me think so sharply. I don't know. I don't know how
The
to
way he
say
argues?
that.
He
Yeah.
did start off with, there are several options here. But
Snoring.
the first one he said was, he snores really loud.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's like a freight train.
And then he also said, or he's really messy, especially in the kitchen.
Oh, he is very messy. He's a very good cook, but I'm like, could you just clean up after you cook?
That's yeah.
But y'all both said snoring, so
Yeah,
this is
there
impressive.
You go. I think you're 3 for 3.
All right, fourth question. What does a dream date night look like for Kim?
For me?
This was his longest answer.
Oh my God.
Oh, he's thought about it.
Yeah, he has. Of course he has. Just describe your dream date night.
Gosh. Sort of like the possessions. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's oh my gosh. I don't know. I think I don't oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm very indecisive, obviously.
We know Barry decides on where y'all eat.
He does. He does. He does. I'm just not very choosy.
I can tell.
I just really don't care.
Broadway play?
Dream night? Date? Wait.
Dream date night.
Dream date night.
My family at home cleaning the house?
He did not put that.
We're going to get this one wrong. I don't know. I mean, going to Anthropologie. I do just like walking through Anthropologie. It smells so good. I don't need to buy anything. But anyway.
Anthro just has so much, like $80 doorknobs.
It bothers me. But they're really pretty. But I don't want to buy it because I don't want to spend $80.
Yeah, it's nice to
and
look
it
at.
smells good in there.
It does smell good in there.
Barry's answer is a complete break from responsibility.
See, I said clean.
A really great meal in a really beautiful setting. A nice bottle of red wine or a cocktail in a pretty glass.
Pretty glass. Yeah, see?
A long, uninterrupted conversation and the chance to sleep in really late the next day.
Yes, all of the above. Yeah, sorry. He's a sharp thinker. I told you.
He thought
To make it happen.
That's good. I know.
He thought about that one.
All right, last thing. What's the most romantic thing Barry has done?
Y'all are killing me.
You got
man.
28 years of material. Kim.
I know.
Ooh. My brain is not working.
I'm not going to lie. His answer made me laugh.
Aw.
Aw.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't like an aw. But
I don't know. Will, do you have any ideas? I'm kidding.
Will's behind the camera.
Will's behind the camera. Oh my gosh.
This is kind of putting her on the spot. No, she's good. Yeah.
I can't wait. I don't know. What did he say?
he said the dishes.
Oh my gosh.
is love.
He said, but not nearly often enough.
Right. Yeah. I said, what was my most romantic date? Everybody at home cleaning the house.
Yeah. She did say, and he's a messy cook, so cleaning up the dishes would be
Listen,
a romantic gesture.
Putting the garbage out.
Yeah. It's the simple things after 28 years, right?
It is.
Barry does the dishes, and then Kathleen was 9 months later. Will. All right, that's it. I mean, y'all had what, three out of 5. So
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Not bad.
I spent a lot of time on those questions of trying to figure out what.
How to ask them?
I was like, what would be like the most like wide range of possibilities for answers? I didn't want to do like favorite food or something like that. But.
Yeah, the talking uninterrupted. Yeah, like I got to
big.
get out all the words.
Yeah.
I got a lot of words.
All right, Kim, thank you again.
Thank you.
This is
glad.
you have to
That's
come
awesome.
back. This is
Yay!
you're more entertaining than Barry. So this is great. There's never a dull moment.
That makes my day. Like you don't understand. I'm like, if I have entertained you, then
Yes.
we're good.
No, that's awesome. All right, we'll be back next week for another week of Formed.